next to speak is Deputy John Lyons. Deputy, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all welcome the bill? It's a bill that has been a while in the making. I think it's something that's exceptionally positive. And I suppose, first of all, a lot of the time people looking in to the Dáil chamber who might just take a glance at politics sometimes might see or might ask what is the relevance of some of the bills that are passed through the House. And albeit we might know ourselves how relevant each bill that passes through the House and becomes law, this particular bill, the Children and Family Relationships Bill, is a bill I think that every person can relate to, because it has a vast positive impact on Irish people and Irish society, and in particular the way we view family life and the diverse family life that exists. What is a law essentially? I mean, for me, a law is about protecting citizens. It's about reflecting the society that we live in, and it's about enhancing the quality of life of the citizens of the society that the law is made in. And that laws in themselves should never intend to displace citizens or create a hierarchy of citizenship. So, in essence, this Children and Family Relationship Bill, in my eyes, as we might debate it on the technicalities here today, it's really about the vast human collective story of Irish people, Irish adults, Irish families, Irish mums and dads, and the children that grow up in those situations. And it's about recalibrating our legal perspective on what we view as life as a family, life as a child in Ireland, and the future of the legal protections that it will offer to children and families in this world. I suppose what I'm trying to do is try to keep it straightforward, because I know most people in here will focus on the technicalities, but the thrust of the bill is about bringing around a better family law that represents the type of society that we are in. And let's be honest about it. For good, bad or indifference, no one-size-law fits all is a good way to do business for a progressive society and for a society that includes everybody. And without a doubt, previous family law, particularly family law in the early days of the state, did create a hierarchy. It excluded people rather than included people. And perhaps it was unintentional, perhaps it was intentional. It was trying to create a particular type of society on particular types of values. But the knock-on effect was that it allowed a lot of people to be left in the shadows of society. And when we leave people in the shadows of society, where no law recognises them, it creates knock-on effects. And those knock-on effects are stigma, cultural norms, hierarchy of who we view as important, and the fact that you live with your granny through no fault of your own may become something, particularly in the past, that people might have felt ashamed of. Why doesn't this person live with their mother or father? Or why are their parents not married? And our solution in the past to people who didn't fit the norm in legislation was that we sent women who were unmarried and who had children to mother and babies' homes. Now, that was the type of laws that we created in the past that had a knock-on effect of creating a stigma against some types of families that existed. Now, I don't think it was acceptable back then to do that, and it most certainly isn't acceptable now to do that, and thankfully we have addressed that issue. And the bill that's before us is about creating a new platform, a platform that tries to right the wrongs that have always existed in family law, and to include the excluded, who were never even acknowledged in family law, but really, truly exist. And unfortunately, a lot of the time as legislators, we can get caught up in the legislation. And I can't help but constantly remind that behind this is the human story of the reality of life. And life isn't what advertisements try to sell us on the front page of a travel brochure of the perfect family and two children in the swimming pool and mommy and daddy there passing the water ball to them. Family exists in many types and many ways, and we need to recognise this. And that's exactly what this bill is trying to do. It's trying to rid the stigma that has often been attached to many hundreds and perhaps thousands of families, particularly in the 70s when I was growing up, where perhaps they were a single parent, and a brave single parent at that stage to rear children because it wasn't culturally accepted. or those people who maybe got pregnant at a very young age and were forced to get married in previous times in this country because it was the thing to do. And then the knock-on effect of that was very unhappy relationships for the adults involved, and traumatised relationships sometimes for the children involved in that. And that's not right either. I mean, I can't but overall just commend what is trying to be done here, to be quite honest with you. It's about creating that modern platform that puts every child and the family circumstances that they find themselves in on an equal footing, and rids the stigma and cultural stigma that has been attached to families from the past, and hopefully creates a gateway into the future whereby we view families for who they are, and that they are all different, very, very different. But what's most important is that they have the protection under the state. As a secondary school teacher, I'm all too familiar from 13 years of teaching of the very diverse families that present themselves before us in schools. I've had children, young people, teenagers who lived with their parents because of or grandparents because of very tragic circumstances in their own family situation. Others who never knew, one of their parents. Others who were living with, their parents or one of their parents' new partners. And laws are only good if we reflect these people who live in our society. And that's what this law is trying to do. Can I just say one thing in particular? I think it's very, very disappointing that some aspects of the media, and some of the media who I'd hold in high regard, and I suppose they have their bosses that have to pay their wages too. But when a bill with 170 sections has a title on the front of one of the leading broadsheets that describes it as the gay adoption bill, I just find it very, very disappointing, given that the vast majority of benefactors of this bill will be the heterosexual families that exist in this society. And one of my colleagues earlier on mentioned this morning that in fact 36% of children are currently born out of marriage, which is 1 in 3 approximately. And out of all of the families that exist right now, 230 families, I think, or thereabouts, are same-sex couples. And it's very, very disappointing and very, very misleading to give a title to a bill that is much more far-reaching than gay and lesbian people, as if this was what the bill was about. Now, we do know that there's a very important connection between this bill and events that happen later on, but this bill should not be seen as that, because it's about recognising every family that has not been allowed to exist under the law in Ireland and have been essentially airbrushed out of society. Just to finish on one thing, there's a story there's a concept story. I actually thought I had longer than this. That's why I'm going to finish it up. I was told it was longer than 10. Aristotle, ancient philosopher, developed a concept called human flourishing, and it's kind of known by many others through centuries as the good life. And essentially, Aristotle's concept was that every human being, in their own right, is good and decent, and in the right circumstances they can thrive to reach their full potential, and that we should always ensure that the right environment is created that they can reach their full potential and flourish or lead the good life. For far too long in Irish society, we've prevented people and sectors of our society from leading that good life. And when we eventually create laws that allow every individual, whether it's through gender recognition, gay and lesbian people, parents or children who are raised by diverse blended families, which are the terms used today, when we begin to do things like that, that actually allow people to reach their full potential and be who they are and develop into the person that they are supposed to be, we all benefit as a society. And Martin Luther King, if I'm right, when he had his march on Washington, he spoke about the white people who had turned up at the march, and I'm paraphrasing here now at the stage, looking at the clock. He says, these white people have turned up today not because of the lack of rights solely to their black fellow citizens, but by not giving the black citizens full rights, it was denying white citizens in America access to a better society. And that's that concept of human flourishing. If we continue to allow people to live in the shadows of society, we create two types of society. This piece of law, which is well overdue, and I commend both Alan Shatter and Minister Francis Fitzgerald, for the work they've done on this, and their officials in the department, because I know this has been an exceptionally tricky piece of legislation. But the real impact on this is the people that we all know. the people who are single parents, the people who are not married and have chosen not to get married, and that's their entitlement. It's the children who live with grandparents, it's the same-sex loving couples who have children from a previous relationship, who all should be entitled to protection under the law and equal protection, because families de facto are unusual. And even the traditional family, when one talks to the other about the traditional family, you ask two people living next door to each other and they'll tell you that every single family is a little bit diverse, even the one that's on the front of the brochure when you have the two parents playing ball with the two kids on their summer holidays. Thank you, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy.